Let's put this in realistic terms. I've been here during the times of 8 presidents over now beginning my 45th year. I've never seen anything like the Trump shutdown from the day it began 34 days ago to now. I hear from people every day about the pain and suffering this shutdown has caused. Certainly I hear about my home state of Vermont. Tomorrow, we know that hundreds of thousands of public servants will miss their second paycheck since the shutdown began. Many of these people have had to work the entire time. They're angry, they're confused about why their paychecks are being held hostage by the president, what he appears to view as a political game. Many of these people can no longer pay their bills. They're worried about what tomorrow will bring, and all of us should worry. We know that our basic government services are no longer functioning. Our federal courts run out of money by the end of this month. Important scientific research has been put on hold. Think of what it will cost to turn it back on. The fishing industry is in turmoil because they can't get the federal permits or inspections required to take out their boats. In the wake of a record-setting fire season, the Forest Service has curtailed thinning and fire prevention projects. Federal law enforcement and prosecutors are sounding the alarm that the shutdown is hindering important investigative work and criminal prosecutions. Transportation Security Administration, TSA, employees are calling in sick in record numbers after a month of being on the job with no paycheck. Some even saying they can't pay for the gas to get to their job. These are the people charged with detecting dangerous threats at our nation's airports. Instead, they're stressed and frustrated. Everybody knows that's not a very good combination. Long lines are forming at airports. The lack of TSA employees have forced some major airports to close screening areas, causing further delays. Now, I could go on and on, but we know the Trump shutdown is hurting our nation and our citizens. I'm going to tell you, overseas, it makes the United States of America look weak and foolish. This great country is made to look weak and foolish by the Trump shutdown. But we can end it right now, today. For the sake of the country, we should. The McConnell Amendment, the so-called End the Shutdown, Reopen the Government Act, we all know it's a non-starter. I came to the floor yesterday, I detailed why. I'm not going to repeat that here today, but it's a height of irresponsibility to use the pain and suffering of the American people as leverage to force the U.S. taxpayers to fund the president's bumper sticker campaign slogan, Southern Border Wall, or his solemn promise that Mexico would pay for it, or to enact his hardline anti-immigrant agenda. That's what the bill does. It's not a compromise. It's not a deal. I hope my fellow senators would oppose it. Because if we give in to these tactics now, where does it stop? What's the next thing the president will shut the government down over? Now, H.R. 268, which is what the Schumer Amendment contains, is a bipartisan bill that we should all support. It would reopen the government by extending funding for the 7 remaining appropriations bills through February 8, 2019. Remember, those are appropriations bills that Chairman Shelby and I worked very hard on and passed through the committee virtually unanimously. We ought to applaud that and take them. Passage of the bill would ensure federal employees are paid and critical services are restored to provide time for negotiation and debate on border security without the American people being held hostage to the president's ill-considered anti-immigrant agenda. I urge senators to vote for it. On December 19, we passed a bill to fund the government to February 8 in this chamber. We did it unanimously by a voice vote. Republicans were in charge of both the House and the Senate at that time. In other words, the Senate was for keeping the government open. The president told the Republican leaders he would support it, and then suddenly he changed his mind, and the Republican leaders had to back off. Now, H.R. 268 also provides $14 billion in assistance to help communities and families impacted by natural disasters recover and rebuild. It provides assistance to the victims of Hurricane Michael in Florence, the California wildfires, volcanic eruption in Hawaii, recent typhoons in the Pacific, other natural disasters. It also continues assistance for Puerto Rico, which is still recovering from Category 5 hurricanes Maria and Irma. But the McConnell Amendment contains a disaster package nearly identical to H.R. 268, but to appease the president, it eliminates all disaster assistance for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a part of America. I know the president referred to it as an island surrounded by water, as though that's the only island that's surrounded by water. But the McConnell Amendment eliminates $1.3 billion in funding for clean and safe water, drinking grants, community redevelopment funds, and nutrition assistance that would help the Americans in Puerto Rico continue their recovery. Hurricane Maria and Irma devastated Puerto Rico. It destroyed the island's homes and infrastructure. It caused the deaths of an estimated 2,975 Americans. It was one of the deadliest hurricanes this country's ever seen. Now, Congress has provided Puerto Rico with assistance in past disaster bills, but there's still unaddressed needs that have to be met. Absent supplemental assistance, it's estimated that 140,000 Puerto Ricans, and I reemphasize they are all U.S. citizens, are going to lose nutrition assistance at the end of March. This, in the United States of America, is it any wonder the rest of the world looks at us and says, what are you doing? We're supposed to take care of all our citizens when there's a crisis, not pick and choose based on who we are or who we're aligned with politically, just as I've voted for disaster aid in states represented by Republicans. Republicans have voted for disaster aid in my state when it's been represented by Democrats. But the president's disregard for the victims of Hurricane Maria is shameful. So I would urge Senators to vote aye on the Schumer amendment. It provides much-needed assistance to disaster-affected communities. It would immediately allow us to send a bill to the president to reopen the government. It's gone on long enough. The president and people in his cabinet are billionaires may not care about the harm he's inflicting on this country. But I know the members of this body, both Republicans and Democrats, do. We know what it means to govern and to lead. We have a responsibility to do it now. Senator Shelby, whom I admire, is a friend of mine. He and I worked together last year in a bipartisan way. We got the appropriations process back on track. We showed this is the way to get things done, but then the president decided to take us off course. The Senate's an independent, co-equal branch of government. We should act like it. Let's end this national nightmare. Let's vote to open the government now for our fellow Americans. Let's do it now, today.